Good evening. If you'd please come to order. And I know that looking out there, you're already in order, but we appreciate you being here tonight. This is our regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's October 8th, 2015, and we're underway at 7 p.m. Before we get started with the agenda, I would like to ask if you have a cell phone or other electronic communication device, if you would please turn it to off, silent, or vibrate. Also, if you have a tendency to have a need to text, if you would go into the hallway or outside. Same with talking to someone else in the room because it is disruptive to the meeting. We appreciate your cooperation on that. Also, I noticed we had some scouts walk in, and they're from Troop 695, and you're working on what merit badge? Citizenship and community? Okay, well, pay attention. You'll learn something. Glad to have you. First up is our invocation. Tonight, Councilmember Buys will be handling the invocation. Then we'll have the pledges to the American and Texas flag. So if you would please stand for the invocation and pledges.
Let us give thanks for all the blessings, opportunities, and challenges you have given us. Guide us with your strength and wisdom so we can make the right decisions for all the citizens of Helotes. Thank you for all our city employees who work so hard to keep our city safe and running smoothly. For those that are not able to be with their family and loved ones because of military service, we pray for your quick and safe return. May we give our best always and be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I would also like to remind each council member, when you're speaking, would you please get as close to the mic as you can, because we're still having some issues with being able to hear the recording online. So we'd appreciate your help in that department. Next up, we have citizens be heard. No one signed up to speak tonight, so we'll go past that and move into our unfinished business portion. This unfinished business is a presentation and a discussion and possible action on an agreement for professional services between the Economic Development Corporation and Freese and Nichols, and we have a representative from Freese and Nichols here to do this presentation. So Dan, if you would, come on up, tell the council who you are, who you represent, and then you can go ahead and get started, and then we'll address questions to you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, citizens. My name is Dan Sefco, Planning Director with Freese and Nichols, and thank you for inviting me this evening. Wanted just to give a brief overview of the project. Then I'd be glad to answer any questions the council has about the process or the project or the contract. Just by way of introduction, this is my brief agenda this evening. I know you've got a long agenda yourselves, but just wanted to introduce ourselves, give you a little background information, and then summarize the scope of services for the city council. We are the oldest engineering company in Texas. We've been around for 121 years. We offer all different kinds of disciplines. We are multidisciplinary. It's engineering, urban planning, architecture, environmental, and other services as well. We have offices all around the state of Texas. We now are in Oklahoma and North Carolina. I office out of the Austin office. I and Erica Craycraft Bartlett will be the two project managers on this project. Between us, we have a lot of experience on planning and zoning and annexation matters. The background, we understand that you've received a lot of ETJ from the city of San Antonio, extraterritorial jurisdiction as we call it. And we need to begin to understand what would be responsible growth in these areas? What would we like to have? Maybe which areas we should annex first, or try to begin to seek annexation first. We realize you're a general law city, and generally, general law cities, with some exceptions, have to have voluntary annexations. But there are incentives and other types of programs that we can offer to encourage this. We've worked with many general law cities to encourage annexation of various areas. The scope of services is, the goals of the project is, let's look at where we think the growth should occur. You have a lot of ETJ now, so where would our growth best be suited? And then what types of growth in this area and these areas are appropriate, whether it be residential or non-residential? And then how can we facilitate this development and make sure it happens in an orderly manner? To do this, we've outlined a 5-step process that picks up and builds upon information. We want to identify those key areas. We'll actually take a look at all the different areas you have. You already have done some planning and some analysis on your own. You have a 2009 comprehensive plan. I will build on that, but we will look at all that data that you've already collected. We'll have an infrastructure assessment, and we'll also begin to assimilate a rough future land use plan based on what we've gathered. We also, from that, will begin to determine what the appropriate land uses might be, and then, more importantly, the strategies. What areas should be considered for annexation first, and then the strategies that go along with it. We don't want to call this an annexation plan. That'll get us into trouble with the state law, but it is a growth plan to evaluate which areas we want to annex first and what order. And then how might we attract the best growth possible in our corridors or the areas that we've selected for annexation. So briefly, that's the scope. It's outlined in the contract, and so we'll look at those 5 areas and build upon those. We have 3 meetings, and we've generally set forth in there where we'll have those meetings, but I think we'll take it with your staff, and we can adjust those, whether we need to have the meetings with the staff or the EDC or you all. We'll be really flexible on that. We will give you a document that outlines all this, and you can begin to look at it and adopt it as a policy guide. I have included in our packet 3 different pieces of different plans and reports that we prepared over the years. And the reason I did that is the way we worked out the scope of services with you all is kind of a combination of all 3. So we'll have a little bit of all 3 in each one, and so that's why you have 3 different ones. That's my brief presentation, Mayor. I think what I'd like to do is turn it back over to you and the council, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have this evening, or if you just want a general discussion about any annexation issues, I'll be glad to entertain those as well. Mayor?
Thanks, Dan. We'll poll the council members one by one and see if they have any questions, and then as we get into discussion, we'll have a motion at that time for any action that might be taken. So Cynthia, would you like to start off? You have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. I have a question about the general law cities that you all have done this plan for. Did any of them result in some type of annexation?
Yes, all of the ones that you have in there have.
Oh, okay.
The biggest one we've done 2 years ago, we didn't include it in there. We did all the annexation analysis for the city of Denton, and that resulted in some 13,000 acres of annexation for the city of Denton, north of Fort Worth. But we've done some as small as a couple of 55-acre tracts and smaller tracts as well. So we've done the whole range of annexation analysis.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
Ed? Paul?
Can you just, if you would, elaborate on step 5, which is the incentives, identifying incentives right there to
Yes, sir.
attract desire?
Well,
Can you, yeah, just elaborate on that if you would?
okay. That's where we want to try to encourage voluntary annexation. As I understand it, what is your population now, as a matter of fact, or what you believe is your
Well,
population?
last census, it was 7341. The estimates now are between 8,000 and 8,500.
And you've chosen not to be a home rule city.
Well, it's on the horizon to look at. We're studying it now, but no,
Okay.
there's no positive steps have been taken.
The idea here is to try to encourage voluntary annexation. So that would be one of those things that we look at. And those things are making sure we have the right tools in your subdivision regulations and your water and your sewer provisions, and how you provide services to these areas. And the reason the subdivision ordinance is critical, it's the only document or the only ordinance that you can apply to your ETJ. You cannot apply zoning to your ETJ. Now, I don't know if you got any specific limited purpose annexation rights with San Antonio, but generally those are separate. But we can regulate the land with the zoning ordinance, or we have zoning ordinance subdivision control in your ETJ. And so we want to set up those incentives within your subdivision ordinance.
Could you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood what you just said about being able to enforce the ordinances in the ETJ.
You can enforce your subdivision ordinance in your ETJ, but not your zoning ordinance.
Okay. Anything else, Paul?
Was
I
that
get-
complete enough, or?
Well, okay, yeah, it did, but I guess, do you provide any services that we would go out and try to attract a business or something? Or strategies for us to do that? Is that part of this?
Yes, but we were clear to say that we're not a marketing firm, so we're not gonna provide you, I think there's other firms out there that specialize in that, but we
Okay.
don't provide you a market analysis. So, I wanted to kind of make that, sure that was, distinction was clear. So, but we will identify the types of land uses that we feel are best in your potential growth areas and approach it from that standpoint. So does that
Yes,
make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I didn't want to intimate or allege that this would be a market analysis. There's other firms that those are very specialized services that other firms offer.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I did have a question on in the realm of the cost of the entire proposal. In the attachment under CO1, it lists a variety of different things, schedule of additional charges. And I guess my question is, the $46,000 is the initial cost. What is the expectation of these additional charges? Because I can see that this could start to balloon quickly if things get too wrapped up in all of these things. And I just want to know what the scope of what you're presenting, pretty much in its entirety, will be within that 46,000. And where would these come into play? And what's your experience with your other companies and having these additional charges come out?
Good question. We have identified a scope of services that we can accomplish this within that amount. But if you ask for additional meetings, or we have to do extra research or other items beyond what we've identified in here, it's just a way for you to amend this scope of services. You would have to approve those, by the way. But it would be a way for you to amend this scope of services. On construction projects, they call them work orders, but since we're not in a construction project here, they would be additional services. And mainly in our line of work, it's additional meetings. So that would be one thing that could change. I don't think that we'll need to do that. As I indicated with Rick, we'd be glad to work with you on the meetings. We can have joint meetings with you, staff, or the NBC, however you would whatever you think would work best. I gotta admit to you, this will be my first project here, so, that's good and it's bad. I don't know anybody. I did meet, the mayor 2 weeks ago at the Texas Municipal League Conference, but, don't know anybody here, so, but I also don't, it gives us a fresh approach and we don't have any preconceived ideas, but, I don't know how it would work best for you all with your different boards and commissions, namely the EDC and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and you all. I don't know how you would like to interact with those groups, and we'd be glad to be as flexible as we can. We'll do whatever works best to convey the information to you all.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
did that?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Bert?
I don't have any questions.
I just have a few, just from reading through this, and I didn't read it in great detail, but I had the same question that Councilmember Blue had on the additional services, and it refers to an attachment SC, and I could not find an attachment SC anywhere, and so we want to be sure that that's in here if it describes those additional services anywhere.
It's the term at the bottom of the page. Mayor,
Mhm.
just look at the bottom of the page.
Okay, I'm looking at,
Yours, that's out of state.
I'm looking at CO1.
But we'd be glad to check that.
Okay, yeah, we
Make
just
sure it
need to
got
be sure
transferred to you,
everything
but
is
yeah.
correct. And then on that same page, it has other direct expenses. And it says other direct expenses are reimbursed at actual cost times a multiplier of 1.15, which would be adding 15% to it. And then you go on to describe miscellaneous expenses directly related to the work, including cost of laboratory, analysis test, let's see, there's travel. See where it was, transportation, travel, food, subsistence away from your offices. I'm just curious, typically on a program like this, what do those total on top of
Those are
the
in-
costs?
Those are included in the 46.
Oh, they are?
They are.
Oh, okay.
For the 3 meetings, if we add other meetings, then we would add other. what we
Okay, so
call
that
board-
would be handled just like the additional services?
Yes, well, if we ask for extra, but those costs are, will be invoiced, but those are included within the 46,000.
Okay, in your experience, are 3 meetings sufficient?
Well, I gotta admit to you, Mayor, I'm not sure. All we do is work for cities, counties, and water districts and other public agencies, and they vary from city to city in the amount of time it takes consensus amongst the city councils that we work for. So I'll assume that our council here is a finely tuned machine, and I think we can work within that and not put too fine a point on it. But if we want to hold other public forums and input, of course, those would be extra meetings. But I think we can make the recommendations of essentially what you're looking for. What do we annex first? Where? What the land use should be, and how much should we do?
Okay.
And that's the basic questions answers you'll get.
Okay, just anticipating extra meetings, would you happen to have a ballpark number for the total of all of these expenses to come down here and have an additional meeting? Are we talking a couple of $100, $500, $1,000
Probably less than 1,000.
per
But
meeting?
that would be coming down here. That would include preparation, coming down here, holding a meeting. Probably that whole total time for us to come down here would be from Austin. I guess maybe 3 hours back
Okay,
and forth, and
so that about 1,000 or
Or
less,
less,
or less would include the labor costs under
Yes.
schedule of charges,
yes,
and the travel, and the
Yes.
subsistence,
We-
all those things?
yes, sir.
Okay. And following up on Council Member Frederick's question, could you be a little more specific on what your study would accomplish in encouraging different communities within the ETJ to actually come and bring a petition for annexation to the city? What would you be doing? What would be involved in your work product that would just make people all of a sudden maybe come in and ask to be annexed into the city? Because I didn't see anything in here that would be an enticement to a community.
And the reason for that, Mayor, is I have tried that before, and it is very difficult to do. Citizens just, I'm just full faith in lending here, but it's very difficult to offer incentives to residential areas that are already developed to come in the city. But we're going to do our best to figure out what ones would be appropriate here. But I'd be giving you some false information if I could tell you for certain what those would be.
Okay.
It's very difficult. I'll put it that way.
I know, because we've met with homeowners associations throughout the years, and we give our best pitch as to why they should come into the city, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I just wondered if you had
We
anything
do.
additional.
We use some things like evaluation of insurance. Often when you pay a higher insurance in the ETJ, when you come in the city, your insurance rates drop because of your rating, your ISO rating. So we try education measures that begin to show them that the benefits they get with the additional services offset. Usually it's not the city taxes that are the highest taxes that they're paying.
Right.
And so what we've tried to do is do a FAQ, frequently asked questions, and other types of items like that can explain to them what the benefits are. So, but you're right. We'll have our best opportunities with the vacant tracts of land. So
Right.
we'll do our best on the occupied tracts, but we don't want to allege that that's going to be an easy thing to achieve consensus on. Just
Okay.
being very straightforward here.
Yeah, one last question. I had asked the staff to contact some of the other cities that you said you've done work for in the past and just see what kind of results each city had that they could directly attribute to your product or your studies or whatever, your work product or deliverables. And we only got one response back. Do you have any specific things that you can pinpoint and say, okay, we did this study and we produced this work product or this deliverable package, and these are the positive things that resulted from that for any of those cities?
Well, the ultimate result is that we try to, usually it's nested within our comprehensive plan process, but we try to identify the areas that communities need to consider for annexation. My humble editorial comment is that our legislator is not going to, every year, attempts to reduce cities' annexation authority throughout Texas, both for general law and home rule cities. And the last session, all the proposals that we've seen them before, they didn't get out of calendars, they didn't get scheduled. But we think they're going to come back next year, and they'll be back. So we try to get cities to take some action as quick as we can. So some of the ones that we gave Portland and Denton, we were able to get those done in the last 2 years. And so we've annexed thousands of acres. And that's really, I'm not saying we're just out for a land grab. But if we don't manage our borders and manage our expansion areas now, there's a chance that in the future it's going to be more and more difficult. So to answer your question is, those are the ones that come to mind. But all of them we've, at some point in time, suggested they annex these areas, and they've varying degrees on other ones. No city does all of them, but we're in our second phase with Portland. We annexed 1,800 acres last year. We're going back and we're going to annex another 800 or 1,000 acres then this year. So.
Okay, so just a quick summary then. Is it safe for me to say that the priority or the emphasis of this study is going to be based upon potential annexation, and that's pretty much what the whole study is for, is annexation?
Broadly speaking, yes. We're going to look at the areas that we want to seek annexation first.
So you're going to prioritize,
Yes, sir.
and that's basically it.
Even if you were a home rule city, you couldn't do all of it.
Right,
So how do you choose?
exactly.
Well, you'll get people come in and do voluntary annexation, and that's great. That doesn't count. But how do we start managing these areas that you have in your ETJ? Which ones should we focus on? I'll have to admit to you, for a community of your size, you have a lot of ETJ.
Yeah, we had to fight for it too.
Well, let's don't fumble the ball, so to speak. Let's try to make sure we
Okay,
pick and choose and try to tackle the right areas first. That's
let me see if we have any follow-up questions, then you can take your seat again and we'll
I'll be
open
glad
our
to.
debate. Any follow-up questions from anybody?
I have a question about our, the land that, our ETJ. How much of it is vacant?
The majority of it.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to,
we'll have the best shot at those areas
Yeah.
because they are vacant.
yeah.
May I comment on just one thing? I mean, when we're talking about
You got
the
your mic on?
Yes, sir. When we're talking about the incentives to attract growth in the ETJ, it was never the thrust of my argument here, or the impetus behind it to annex areas that were already developed. Rather, as to what you just said, that most of it is vacant land. That's what I would be working with them on.
Sure.
Trying to incentivize that, or focus on that, because I think it is easier to annex those areas, and actually probably better because then we can control how it looks. So.
No, I agree. It would be good, though, to get a different perspective for us to use in approaching areas that are developed. Because I know that we do have citizens in different communities in our ETJ that would like to be annexed into the city, but it's difficult for them to really get a majority or 51% of their neighbors to join them to bring a petition to the city to accomplish that. So it's a matter of, if you guys have a different approach than we're using, we would welcome ideas. That was my point there.
Point taken. Our evaluation includes all your ETJ areas, whether they're populated or not. So, not saying we're going to go tackle those first that are inhabited. So, don't want to make sure if there's any folks listening at home. That's not the intent. So, but we are going to evaluate all of them for you.
Well, we're pretty selective anyway, because we don't want to even go out there and think about annexing anything we can't take care of, contrary to what other cities sometimes are accused of
That's
doing.
the right way to approach it.
Yeah, okay. Anything from down here, Paula? Nothing? Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll get to the discussion and action part of this item. So if I can have a motion and a second to open discussion and take action.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we discuss and take action on agenda item number 3.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Massey. So Bert, it's your motion. You're up first on discussion.
Dan, thank you. It was a good presentation. Appreciate it. I still believe, like I did at the last meeting, this is something that is needed, but it is not needed right now. The retail services agreement that we have with the other consulting service, in their scope of services, they are supposed to do a study of the ETJ also. To me, this is we're doubling up on consultants here. The total amount of consulting works the EDC would be spending money on would be $81,000. I just don't see that as a good amount of money to spend on just consultings. We have a linear park, we have a water and sewer line to put in, and we're going, in my mind, I believe we're going to have cost overruns, and we're going to need extra money to pay for those. One other thing, or a couple other things. Even if we, like I said at the last meeting, even if we were a home rule city today, it would still take 3 years to annex a parcel of land. It would take 3 years. And Rick said, and the final thing I want to say about this is, Rick said that you can't take bids for these type of services. I understand that, but I believe we could have interviewed more than one company to possibly do this. I think this is a good thing to do, but not at this time. That's all I have.
Cynthia?
I disagree with Honorable Councilman Buys. I think that this is the time to do something like this. This is the EDC sales tax money. This is the EDC's program. They wanted to do this. They have the money to do this. Whether or not there's overruns, the EDC will take care of it. They have reserves. So ultimately, this is a program I believe that we need to work on, and it's going to help us with our annexation goals, and I think we should move forward with it.
Anything else?
Not right now.
Ed?
Thank you. Mine hasn't changed from the last time we discussed this. I'm with Councilman Buys on this one. I think we have to give the other consultants an opportunity, since we've already got them approved, to give us their opinion as in assessment. I don't see any reason to duplicate services at this time. I'm for this. I did check out some of the work that was done in the city of Bee Caves and frequent that area. They've done a tremendous job. Your company's got a great reputation in that area, and no doubt if eventually we come around to hiring your services, we'll get some great service. But anyway, at this point in time, I'm still thinking that we should just put this type of agreement on hold pending the assessment of the other firm. Thank you.
Paul?
I think really with, again, I've been on the fence with this, and I really didn't see a great need for it, especially with the steps 1 through 4 that I didn't think was really necessary. But with the presentation, I think with the amount of vacant land, and we need to get ahead of this, and I think this would be beneficial at this time, because we want to stay where, well, I'm trying to say this the right way. I guess we just need to get ahead of it and plan, and that's a good planning tool for the EDC and for the city. That's all.
Okay. Alex?
I don't have a comment.
No comments? Bert, anything else?
Mayor, may I approach and make a comment?
Not now.
No, I don't have anything else. I just feel like, I mean, we're duplicating services here. In the scope of services of the other consultants that we hired, they're supposed to do a study of the ETJ. This is a duplication of services in my mind.
Okay. Cynthia, anything else?
And I disagree with that. The retail services is going to be doing that marketing part that was just talking about. They're going to be actually finding the businesses to go into those particular areas and incentivizing them to come in. And it is not the same service. So.
Okay. Ed? Paul, anything else? Still nothing? Okay. Dan seemed to have an interest in saying anything else. Would you like to hear what he has to say? Okay, Dan, come on up.
Certainly would encourage you, didn't want to duplicate services, so maybe if we could see what they're doing, maybe we could explain. So certainly we don't want to duplicate services.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be glad to amend ours if there is a duplicate of services. But it doesn't take 3 years. There's 2 types of processes. If we annex areas that we have to have an annexation plan, that could take 3 years. Most all the annexations now take about 6 months or 9 months, so, under state law. So, depends, if it's vacant, then they usually don't take 3 years to annex. So, just wanted to point that out. But we're very respectful. We don't want you to double spend money, and I think the wisest thing would be to double check. We'd be glad to work with Rick and take a look and make sure there's no duplicated services. So whichever way the vote goes, we'd be glad to do that. So thank you for your comments.
Just real quickly, so you're saying that we can take a little deeper look at this together, and if there is an indication that maybe there is a crossover, that the terms could be changed and therefore the price?
Absolutely. We're not
Okay.
interested in doubling your work, doubling work. That's not what we're about. And I just wasn't aware of it that was there, but we'd be glad to look at it, and we'd be glad to adjust our fee accordingly. That's not-
Okay.
That would be
And
fair for you or us.
I didn't see a time frame in there. I believe Rick had mentioned the 9 months to
It
complete
is in
this,
there,
more or less?
Mayor.
About 9 months?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I just didn't read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
9 months.
But I encourage you to do due diligence and take a look and make sure that you're comfortable with us as well. So we understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up by anybody? Okay, so we'll go directly to the question, and here a yes vote will be to approve the agreement. And as you heard, there's still some room to fine tune it and maybe adjust the price downward if that appears to be necessary, and that could be handled by the EDC. So a yes vote again would be to approve this contract, and a nay vote will be to deny it. So that being said, I'll ask the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
Nay.
No.
Okay, so we have 3 yes votes, Massey, Fredericks, and Blue, and 2 nay votes, which would be Villanueva and Baez. So this motion carries and the contract is approved. Thanks, Dan.
We'll work with Rick, would that be our point?
Sure.
Contact manager.
Yeah,
We'll still double check those items that you mentioned.
yeah, and it'll just, he'll work with the EDC and you, and you guys can work out the details. Thank you, Dan. Okay, next up is our consent agenda, and tonight we only have 2 items, items 4 and 5. Consent agenda, these items are considered to be fairly routine by staff, and we put those on a consent agenda. Typically, there's more to expedite the meeting. Council does have a prerogative to ask questions. If they can be answered fairly briefly, we'll address them. Otherwise, they can pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion in more detail. So I'll ask now, are there any questions or requests to pull items 4 or 5? None being heard, I would then ask for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 4 and 5.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we approve consent agenda items 4 and 5.
We have a motion from Fredericks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Villanueva to approve consent agenda items 4 and 5. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda items 4 and 5 are approved. That takes us to number 6. This is discussion and action on a resolution approving an agreement to contribute right-of-way funds. And so if I can get a motion and a second, we'll start discussion on this and see if Rick has any input that he feels is necessary for the discussion. So if I can have a motion and a second, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to discuss and take action on item 6.
We have a motion from Baez. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Blue. I think the material spoke for itself. You don't have anything you want to add to it? Rick is available for questions, or perhaps I can help also. Bert, it's your motion, so if you have any discussion on this.
I just had one quick question. I guess it's for Rick. Rick, I thought we were going to be spending a lot more than that for the row acquiring. Wasn't it a lot more than that?
It was approximately $45,000.
How did it get down to this
Well,
number?
Just back up.
I'm sorry.
Initially, it was gonna be in this area. And then they sent us a letter saying that it was gonna be 40-some odd thousand.
Right, I
So-
remember that.
So we met with Jonathan Bean and then take it from there, Rick.
You're doing fine.
Oh, I'm doing fine? No, okay.
Well, this is a good thing. I mean, I just was expecting to spend
No,
$40,000 or $50,000.
My question was, they had identified some parcels that to me weren't our responsibility. So we met with Jonathan Bean from TxDOT and pointed those things out to him. And because they were just asking us without any real evidence of prices or what they were paying for square footage of land, to write them a check for $46,000. Well, in meeting with them, it came down to, yes, some of those parcels were not our responsibility, and it came down to just the two here, and a total cost of about 16, which initially the guess was 15 to 20 for our share. So we're right in where we were last year when it was first brought to our attention. And again, this is for the Hausman Road project that'll start probably next year sometime between Bandera Road and 1604. And this is, we're required to pay for this right-of-way acquisition, and so that's what this is. Anything else?
No, I just drove down Hausman inside of 1604 today, and it looks like they're pretty close to finishing. They said when they did that, they were gonna move across
Right.
1604, so they're,
Right.
now this is good news. I just wanted to know why it went down so much, so. Good job.
Tough bargaining.
There you go.
And refusing to just write a check when someone tells us we owe the money. Alex, your second?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to appreciate Rick and your work in trying to make sure that they didn't take advantage of us. That's all.
Ed?
Nothing, I have no comment. Thank you.
Cynthia? Anything? Paul?
No, sir.
Okay, no further discussion. Then we'll call the question. All in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Resolution is approved, and we'll go ahead and work with TxDOT on getting them what they need. Up next is number 7, discussion and action on a request for a variance to the municipal code, chapter 66 signs for an entrance monument for trails at Helotes subdivision, which is the subdivision out by Los Reyes Canyon. So if I can have a motion and a second, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we discuss and take action on item number 7.
I have a motion from Fredericks, a second.
I'll second.
Second from Buys. Okay, Paul, it's your motion.
I like the sign, and I'm okay with the recommendations of the P and Z commission. That's all I have.
Okay, which is to keep both ends of the sign at 5'4".
Yes, sir. And the overall size to 145 square feet.
Okay. Bert, your second.
I disagree with Councilmember Fredericks. I like the way the sign looks as it's drawn up. The only thing that, I guess I have a question. If they would bring the tower down to 12 feet, would it be in compliance with our, ordinance? It would not? Okay.
There is are you asking me the code question, whether it
Yes.
would be in compliance? It would still be too large.
It'd still be too large? Okay. Well, I like the way the sign was drawn up originally. I do not agree with the P&Z's assessment of it. I think where it sits in the subdivision down there, it is off the road. It may or may not be sitting in a hole when they're finished done with the road, when they finish grading out the road. But I like the way the sign looks, and I do not agree with P&Z's wanting to cut the tower out.
Cynthia?
I agree with the P and Z's recommendations. I don't like the tower, and I'd like it to, I don't want to give them a variance, so.
Okay. Ed?
I don't have a problem with this, with the height. Again, I think it's set back in the property just fine. I live next door in Los Reyes, and we just had our monument sign redone for the sole purpose of just giving it visibility to the public and say fire and police as well. But anyway, again, the way it's drawn up in the front is and in the back, it's just, to me, it's just fine. I'm gonna have to say that I will be willing to approve this one. Thank you.
Alex?
Well, I do have a comment. Actually, having been at the planning and zoning meeting when they had long discussions about this, I can tell you that their concern was not so much by itself the tower as it was the size of the sign in general. And knowing that recently the city made a change to its subdivision entry sign requirements, where I believe the entry sign requirement for a neighborhood or subdivision was 84 square feet. And the staff recommendation was to go considerably higher, I believe 160. And planning and zoning then made the change, and it came through here that we modified that to 145. And so the reason why planning and zoning said stick with 145 is because if you went back 6 months ago, they could only have had 84. Their reasoning for removing the tower was not so much that they didn't like the tower as much as it was that far above what our current zoning code states. And the tower being a part of the overall sign is well, considerably above the 145. Their recommendation was if you take the tower down to 5'4", which is the size of the one in the front, then it brings it back to 145, and that's why they made the recommendation. It wasn't simply because they wanted a shorter tower or height or et cetera like that. So that's kind of why they said, no, stick to the ordinance. We just made it larger, and this still is I think their vote pretty much was unanimous, and it was by more a matter of principle rather than a like or dislike of any feature of the sign. Normally I would agree with the matter of the principle because I usually am the one who doesn't like the variances from signs. But I would say that I think the sign looks good as presented, but the one modification I would make to it is that the height of the one post is considerably more than we allow any monument sign in the city, which is 12 feet. Multi-tenant, single tenant, none of them can be beyond 12 feet. We just had another sign request and we cut it down to the 12 feet. And so I think if we want to be consistent on the overall height, then we would have to take that one down to 12 feet. And even though this does go beyond the 145, I would be agreeable to make the variance, but if the taller of the two is no higher than the 12 feet. We've been consistent with that anywhere in the ETJ as well as in the city. That would be my modification if the maker of the motion and second would agree to that.
Okay, Paul, back to you. If you want to consider that in the form of an amendment to drop it to 12 from the 14, you could consider making that amendment to your motion. Or you just leave it like you had it.
I think I'll amend my motion to include the stipulation that the second tower go no more than 12 feet. I'll compromise.
Okay, so the motion is amended to where the approval of the variance would be to allow 12 feet instead of the 14. Bert?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have an amended motion. Cynthia, back to you. Any input on that?
Well, considering that Mr. Blue is the one who is always very adamant about signs, and he's willing to give on this one, I'm just gonna have to vote with the guy. So, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Ed, anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Alex, any last thoughts?
No, thank you.
Okay, then we will go ahead and call the question on this. And again, we do have an amended motion, which would authorize by a yes vote to approve the variance, keeping the square footage requirements, I guess, to the 145 on the actual sign, if that's the way I'm reading this, but bring the tower down to 12 feet from the requested.
Mr. Mayor,
It's gonna be
it would
one-
still
it's gonna be
exceed the
more than
145.
145?
Yes,
Okay.
it'd still exceed 145.
Okay, well, whatever it comes out to at 12 feet then. I'm like you too, I'm a little distracted because
I know, it is. It's distracting.
he actually suggested it.
I know.
Okay, so then whatever square footage with a 12-foot height on the interior tower, So that being said, again, a yes vote will approve the variance at 12 feet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries with a unanimous vote. Now we come to the interesting agenda item. This is a discussion of and action on amendments to the City of Helotes Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual, Chapters 3, 13, and 22, having to do with sexual orientation and other things. So we would ask for a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
I have a motion from Massey, a second.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead. Okay, I got it.
Okay. We have a motion from Massey and a second from Buys. So Cynthia, you're up.
I think that, did everyone get the amended version of this proposal?
They should have.
I'm fine with the amended version of this proposal that was presented to us, that's sitting on our dais.
That came today.
Yes.
Okay. Bert?
I'm also fine with it, but I have a question. Somebody needs to explain this to me, okay? Under chapter 22, definitions of spouse, I kind of got it, I kind of get it all the way to where we're validly entered into. I get it into that. But then outside of the United States, if they could have been entered into in at least one state. I have no idea what that means.
Well, we
I'm
just so
sorry.
happen to have an expert here with us tonight, so this is Lee Reams from our attorney's office, and she's a specialist in labor law and those kinds of things. So Lee, you have the floor.
I'm sure all the other council members know what it means. It's
So
just you can just talk
explain
to me.
spouses and sexual orientation and who can use the bathrooms.
I'll stick to this particular question that you asked. This language actually comes right out of the Department of Labor's guidance. That
Speak more into your mic.
okay, is that better?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. The language comes right out of the Department of Labor's guidance on what this and what it should say. I think it's similarly confusing when you read it all together as well. But basically, what they're saying is that if you're married outside of the United States and it is a marriage that would be recognized in at least one state. I'm not really certain what example that applies to.
Okay, so you're saying if you were married out of the states, let's say I was married in Costa Rica, okay? And me and my significant other comes into Texas. Texas would have to recognize that marriage. No? Or
No.
Texas would have to validate.
If Texas would have if you could have entered into that marriage in Texas, then it would be acceptable. If you were married in a state outside
I
of,
think the bottom line,
Or
if I
country
may,
outside.
is that it basically is the catch-all. Everybody, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, if they were married someplace else and they came in, it's gonna be valid in one state. I mean,
Well, now it'll be valid in all the
now it would be
states.
valid in all states, so I don't think it really matters, but it is
Right.
the definition from.
and so actually when this guidance was issued, it was before the United States Supreme Court had ruled on same-sex marriage. And so it may be a little duplicative now because or maybe irrelevant would be the better word, because most marriages would be recognized. There wouldn't be a basis to exclude the marriage.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add one, I can think of an example of one that we probably would not recognize, and that would be multiple marriages. So if there was a country out there where somebody was a polygamist, let's say, it might be legal in that country, but that wouldn't make it legal in this country in any state, and therefore that would be an example of one that wouldn't work.
Very good point.
The sign guy strikes again.
On a roll.
Thank you, Lee. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. And Ed, anything from you?
No.
Paul,
No, I'm fine with the amended definition.
whatever it says? Alex, anything additional?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, going back to, let's see, Cynthia, it was your motion, any follow-up?
No, like I
Okay.
said, just,
Everybody
the
else
new one.
okay with it then? Okay. Then we'll call the question on item number 8. All in favor of approving the changes to the personnel policies and procedures, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And the amendments as presented in the new paperwork today will be made. Okay, next we have number 9, and this is reappointment of EDC board members, places 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. If you'll notice, some of these expired next year, but since they weren't reappointed last year, we're just including them in this reappointment process. And then the one showing expiration in 2017 expired the end of September this year, and that's why they're showing a 2-year term. So if I can have a motion and a second to discuss and take action on reappointments for the EDC in these places, please.
Mr. Mayor. Ladies first.
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 9 as written.
We have a motion from Massey. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Cynthia, any discussion?
No, I just had a question. When we changed the bylaws, are these 1-year or 2-year terms?
Two.
They are 2-year terms?
Mhm.
The officer positions are 1-year terms?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to, hats off to these people who reapplied, but I also would like to acknowledge Artie Garner, who decided not to ask for a reappointment, and she worked for the EDC for 13 years, and I just would like to give her my kudos for it and to thank her for her service.
Ed?
Thank you, Artie. That's all.
That's it? Paul, any comment?
No, thank you.
Alex?
No, sir, thank you.
Bert? Okay, no further discussion then. These will be reappointments on the places indicated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Brings us on to 10, and these are 2 folks that had applied, and I've chosen to recommend them to you for consideration to approve them to fill the vacant spots, place 5 and place 6. First in place 5, we have Kathy Mitchell. So Kathy, if you would, just come on up here and introduce yourself and just tell them a little bit about yourself. We'll see if they have any questions. And
Good evening. How are y'all today? Okay? Good. I'm Catherine Mitchell. I've retired from Northside, school teacher and administrator. I was at John Marshall for many years, ended up at John Jay. I'm also educated as a geologist, adjunct professor at UTSA, chemistry and physics, and my hobby is pottery. But best of all is I'm the Empty Bowls chairman for this next year, and probably for years after, helping Sam's ministry for our homeless.
okay, thanks. Any questions for Kathy? Okay, thanks a bunch.
Stepping up.
Thank you.
I had one question.
Oh, okay. Bert has a
I'm
question.
sorry. You don't think you're overqualified? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Thanks for stepping up.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up in place 6, and that term for place 5 will be a full 2-year term. Place 6 will be, this appointment would be until the end of the regular term in 2016, and this is for Diane Anderson. So Diane, if you would, come on up. Diane works for Broadway Bank in the Claber branch.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. I am Diane Anderson. I do work for Broadway Bank for the past 5 years. I am Calabre and Ingram, but I have been very active in the Helotes community since the year 2000. I serve as the treasurer of the Helotes Lions Club since 2006. I am the president of the Helotes Area Merchant and Business Association since a while, and I was on the board prior to that. Very active in Helotes in many different facets. Hold a MBA from the University of Phoenix, and I've been in the financial institution industry for 35 years. I know I don't look it. I started at 2.
Any questions for Diane?
No.
Questions? Thanks, Diane. Okay, then if you want to handle both these together, we'll go that way since that's how it's written. So again, a yes vote will approve both places. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Places 5 and 6 are filled. Kathy and Diane, congratulations, and be ready to go to work on the 21st of this
Mr.
month.
Mr.
I
Mayor.
believe.
Mr. Mayor.
22nd? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
We didn't
We didn't
vote,
get a
we didn't
motion.
make a motion.
no motion.
We didn't make a motion?
No.
You're right, we didn't. Man, I almost made it with a flawless agenda. So we have a motion and a second to approve these.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we discuss and take action on item 10.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion from Fredericks and a second from Massey. I can only assume that what caused me to do that is still trying to figure out some of what Alex came up with tonight. And threw me off my game a little bit, going into the finish. So with a motion and a second on that, we will go to the question then. All in favor of approving these two appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, now we're officially complete on that. And again, Kathy and Diane, thanks for applying, and we wish you well on your tenure with the Economic Development Corporation. We have some very exciting projects coming up, and you guys will be an important part of that. So again, congratulations. That finishes our agenda for tonight. So if there are no other requests for any discussion, or if there are no objections, so I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.